Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy with the Crosse Area Freethought Society. This event is hosted by our organization along with the Secular Student Society, the Crosse Secular Student Society, I should say, here at UWL. Tonight we're honored to have August Berkshire, member and past president of Minnesota Atheists, and Dr. Scott McMurray with Faith United Methodist Church. He's a pastor there. Moderating tonight's debate is Sam Cinta. The topic is morality. Can we be good without God? And this is our fifth debate that we have annually here at UWL, and we generally try to tackle these topics that generally aren't discussed in polite company and are discouraged. So we think the conversations along these lines are healthy and important to have. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Sam, and he'll describe the format of tonight's debate and how we'll handle audience questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Am I on? Yes. Good evening, everybody. My name is Sam Cinta. I'm an adjunct lecturer here at UWL. I also do a considerable amount on civility work in the community and as a book publisher. And so events like this are just so wonderful to see. As Jeremy says, we're taught when we grow up that we shouldn't talk about religion or politics in mixed company. And yet, in our society, in order to make democracy thrive, it's exactly what we need to do. And so seeing all of you out here on a Sunday night just warms my heart to know that people care so much about hearing some excellent debate and discussion on such a nice and meaty topic. This evening, it's going to be a friendly debate. For those of you who've been here in the past, this is not an argumentative sort of thrust and parry, but instead something a little more civil in nature. What we're going to do is both parties, starting with Dr. McMurray, will give introductory statements to begin with. Those will be about 15 minutes each. Then those will be followed by rebuttal statements by both sides as to what is discussed in the introductory statement, followed by cross-examination, questioning, and kind of final probing for the points by each party for approximately 5 minutes each. And so therein, if you're keeping track, that's about an hour of our schedule. After that, we will be very happy to take questions from the audience. A couple of things. First of all, we have to be out of the room around 8:40 this evening because they need to turn it for another event tomorrow morning. So we're going to have to keep the questions very succinct, to the point, and that's something that we will enforce up here. We're asking for questions at the question time, not opinions, not diatribes, not dialogue. Obviously, the speakers will be available afterwards if you want to buttonhole them in the corner and talk about something a little more detailed, but really we want to get questions as to what they're talking about and keep it moving along so that everyone who has a question has an opportunity to start. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. McMurray, who will start with his 15-minute presentation. Civil? Friendly? Well, I wouldn't have it any other way. As my congregations know, I talk loudly but carry a very soft stick, and just a big overgrown teddy bear, really. The only people I want to be afraid of me, he's off my list now. He married my daughter, but up until that moment, I wanted him to be afraid. I wanted him to be very afraid. It was good. It was good for all of us. And it all worked out. And he asked me the other day, he said, "Do I still have to be afraid of you now that you're my father-in-law?" But yeah. Well, it's tempting and also desirable to be able to say yes to the question, can we be good without God? After all, most of us can be civil and polite, gracious, and even on occasion altruistic. When we've had a good night's sleep and the sun is shining, we want to resonate with Lincoln when he said, "Though passion may have strained, it must not break our bonds of affection. The mystic chords of memory will swell when again touched, as surely as they will be by the better angels of our nature." Yet, I fear this is only the surface of things. When I was recently in France and visiting a monument to honor the Holocaust victims, a Frenchman standing beside me commented, "You realize, monsieur, do you not,
It would take so very little to once again rise up the armies to go forth to pillage and conquer and kill. It would take so very little to reassemble the extermination camps. With their marvelous poetry and imagery, the first 11 books of Genesis richly define the human condition. Unique in all creation, we are made in God's image, designed to be his very sons and daughters. We've been called to be co-creators with God in a world God initially said was very good. The better angels of our nature. But the stories then speak of our godlike capacity for free will being used to rebel against God, and our consequent slide into chaos and destruction, which also dragged down the whole of creation, and therefore echoing down the long, bloody centuries in every generation, the words of Cain are repeated anew, "Am I my brother's keeper?" G.K. Chesterton, the Christian apologist of a prior generation, quipped, "It is surprising that people have rejected the doctrine of original sin because it is the only doctrine that can be empirically verified." And as a father myself, I also appreciate the comment by C.H. Spurgeon when he said, "Any man who declares children to be born perfect never was a father. Your child without evil? You without eyes, you mean." And so our Judeo-Christian wisdom tells us there is a beast that dwells within us all, and we would be wise to reckon with its presence. In every generation, there are the cautionary stories that warn us how easy it is to slip the reins of civility and for the reptilian part of our natures to reassert itself. The fiction of Cormac McCarthy and the current popularity of movies and TV of zombies and vampires are richly symbolic reminders of the dark forces of chaos that lurk under the thin veneer of our civility. I recall as a youngster being vividly impressed by William Golding's Lord of the Flies. The tale is of a group of English school children that are marooned on a tropical island. They are quite proper and well behaved. The island is lush. It meets all their needs. But soon the boys divide into warring factions. Only one boy they call Piggy because he's fat and myopic, really knows what's happening. And when Piggy tries to enlighten them, they do to him what has been done to all the prophets who tried to open our eyes. They cast him out and they kill him. And just as they are about to cut off his head and mount it on a stick, rescuers arrive on the scene. In the presence of adults, the savage little killers instantly revert to proper English schoolboys without even a glimmer of understanding of what they've just done. So who of us is exempt? Several years ago, my wife was killed by a surgical blunder, which was combined with sloppy and careless post-surgical care at a local medical center that likes to boast it's one of the very best in the nation. And when I went to her caregivers for an explanation, I was met only with a wall of silence and what turned out to be the softly muttered lies of her surgeon, the nurses, as well as the department heads, and the CEO of that medical center. To me, it is profoundly unsettling to realize the very people we sometimes have to entrust our very lives to, people who are held up as paragons in our community, can in reality be so indifferent to the suffering they sometimes cause, and so unwilling to take moral responsibility for their actions. So what can we do? Where can we turn for help? How do we tame the beast? Yes, education, politics, social norms, law, medicine all have their place. But history is a testament of the essential inadequacy of all these things. Can the dragon ever be slain? Or is the best we can hope for is that we can keep it chained in the deepest recesses of the id? The Apostle Paul looks closely into his own heart as he cries out, "Why do I end up doing the things I hate when I want to do good? Evil is right there with me. What a wretched man I Who will rescue me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ, our Lord. For the past 2,000 years, many millions of people have discovered that through embracing the mysteries of Christ's life and death and resurrection, we can find hope and healing. We Christians use the imagery of being raised from the dead to express our conviction that though we continue to stumble and fall constantly by the grace of God, we have nevertheless found the one sure path to redemption. Oh, it might be easy to laugh at us and say the current 2.2 billion Christians worldwide are nothing but deluded fools and believers in fairy tales, but look at the evidence. Every time a Christian gives a cup of cold water to a thirsty person, rumors of a kingdom, both now and not yet, are whispered. For those of us who have eyes to see and ears to hear, this edge of your seat anticipation is what keeps us Christians hopeful and positive, despite the constant struggle with our own deeply divided hearts and the pain of a broken world. Without any perception of God, what a bleak and hopeless and empty world we would inhabit. There is simply no point to a universe shorn of the divine, where the grave is the inevitable end of all things. And yet God is everywhere. As Elizabeth Barrett Browning puts it, earth's crammed with heaven, and every common bush afire with God. But only he who sees takes off his shoes. The rest sit around it and pluck blackberries. Ultimately, the question, can we be good without God, is a nonsense question. At least in America, religion has played a pivotal role in our history and culture. It permeates everything. Way back when in the 17th century, Roger Williams declared we're a city set on a hill. The blending of ideals of liberty with religious freedom in the 18th century that spawned the revolution. To the powerfully motivating ideas of the Great Awakening and Manifest Destiny and abolition in the 19th century. To Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech in the 20th. Religion, and especially the Christian religion, is indelibly imprinted on our cultural and personal DNA. How can we possibly separate it out? How can we possibly be aware of all the ways we've been shaped and molded by Christian conviction, often without even knowing it? God is present indeed everywhere, and you cannot get rid of him. No matter how much some people scream for the removal of every vestige of religion from the public square, I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. My wife liked to say, she was a public school teacher, she said, as long as there is one Christian teacher in that school, God is present in that school, and you cannot kick him out. So I dare say, my dear Mr. Berkshire, if I right now am the incarnation of the presence of Christ here in this room, then I'm not only standing where you see me under this bright light that makes you all look very dim, but I'm in your memories. I'm in your mind. I'm in your heart. You can't you can't expel me as easily as you might think. And I'm afraid that if you were to try, what you would have left might not be all that much to your liking, or to the liking of anyone else, for that matter. Thank you, Mr. Berkshire.
You gotta find a place where there's no glare on my head here. Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the sponsors of this debate, the La Crosse Secular Student Society and the La Crosse Area Freethought Society, and especially Jeremy Pfeiffer, who did most of the work to set this up. Hank Zumak and Betty Hammond for their home hospitality, and my opponent Scott McMurray, our moderator Sam Simca, and all of you for attending. I heard that there was some sort of football game tonight. Well, we're all concerned with morality. Without it, we might not even be here. And I understand the fears of some religious people that without a God to create or enforce morality, we would degenerate into a lawless species, torturing and murdering each other with nothing to hold us back. But we don't get our morality from the gods. We create it ourselves, and then ascribe it to the gods as a sort of invisible policeman. But the thing is, you don't need gods to justify good behavior. You only need gods to justify bad behavior. When we're talking about gods, we can start with one simple question. How do you tell the difference between a revelation and a hallucination? For thousands of years, we've had all kinds of people claiming to speak for all kinds of gods. Loving gods, petty gods, jealous gods, intolerant gods, vengeful gods, forgiving gods,